All right, welcome everybody. We're going to give people a few more minutes to come on in, but we are so glad that all of you are joining us this evening for this mass mobilization call to say no to the big dirty bill and to oppose this terrible package which is moving through Congress. My name is Jamie Henn. I'm the co-founder and executive director of Fossil Free Media. We have a great team with our Make Polluters Pay campaign here tonight and some incredible guests to talk with all of you and talk with us about the different ways that we can take action to fight against this horrific proposal, which is moving through Congress. The good news, though, is that there are some really concrete ways that we can fight back that we're going to talk about. So, throughout the chat tonight, we're going to be dropping in links for you to take action, for ways for you to contact your members of Congress, but also for ways for us to keep building this movement beyond this particular moment. We really see this as a key moment in our struggle for climate justice and clean energy, but also it's a real chance to revitalize our movement and think about the ways that we can continue to push forward and play offense and make progress during the Trump administration. So we are completely thrilled to have an incredible set of speakers here tonight to share some context, to dive deep about what is happening in this bill. We'll talk about what's at stake, the political movement that we're building, the way that we can all collaborate. We'll share some really concrete ways that you can take action and ways that we really think this will make an impact right now, too. We'll talk more about how we can fight back in general, and then we will close it up. So thank you to everybody that's sharing where you're coming from in the chat. I see Boone, North Carolina, Boston, Buffalo, Whidbey Island, Palo Alto, Houston, Texas. It's fantastic to see so many people tuning in. We have hundreds and hundreds of people here on the call. So without further ado, I want to pass it over to my dear friend, someone who has helped wage the fight for clean energy, an expert, an advocate, someone, a real shining light in this, Leah Stokes, my co-MC. Do you want to help us kind of set the stage for the moment we find ourselves in? What's going on with this horrific, dirty bill in Congress and some of the ways that we can start to fight back?
Absolutely. Well, it's wonderful to be here with you, Jamie, and the hundreds of people who are joining on the call. I'm sure folks have been seeing the protests over the last few days across the country. And, us joining together here is another way to resist all these things that are happening right now. So it's awesome to have you. And I'm loving the folks on the call from a couple key states like North Carolina and Maine and Kansas and Utah, just off the top of my head. Those aren't, the very states where the senators have been saying that maybe this whole thing that the House is doing isn't worth passing exactly the same way through the Senate. So your voices matter so much. I am a political scientist at UC Santa Barbara, and partially I do research in addition to activism. And one thing we see in our research is very few people actually call their members of Congress and senators. So if you do that today, if you get 5 of your friends in your communities, especially if you're in some of those key states like Maine and Alaska and Kansas and North Carolina, that can really make a big difference. Those calls are rare. So that's one of the things we're going to ask you to do. So, what are you calling about? What is happening in Congress right now? I'm sure you're all reading the news, but it's hard to dig into all the details. It's hard to stay on top of the chaos these days. So, let me give you a sort of short explainer here. So, in the middle of the night, a few weeks ago, House Republicans jammed through a bill, which several of them have since said they didn't even read, that included provisions that they don't even agree to, even though they voted for the bill. I know, strange times we live in. But what are some of those provisions when it comes to clean energy, climate justice, the things that we care a lot about? Well, the first thing that it does is it takes back the unspent money for a lot of the key provisions that are really helping drive progress. So these are things like the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, state funding, where all these states applied to say, hey, we've got these ideas to cut pollution. All this environmental justice funding to like clean up ports, for example. This is really important funding that is helping cut pollution. And in all corners of this country. And so, this is a really sad thing. And on the one hand, there's claiming that they're only going to take away the money that isn't spent yet, which isn't a lot of money actually. But a lot of state and local campaigners are worried that this will be a pretext to try to claw back even more of the money that they've been illegally freezing for months. So that's the first thing to know. The second thing that it does is it really screws over everyday Americans in a bunch of ways. It's going to make energy bills more expensive, and it's going to take away a couple key incentives that help people put solar on their roofs, a heat pump in their garage, and a heat pump water heater, do efficiency in their homes, things like, efficient windows and doors, stuff like that. So those provisions, if for those who care about the wonky stuff, this is 25D for solar and 25C for home retrofits. Um, these are pretty likely to go away from everything I'm hearing. And so the thing I'm going to talk about, I'm going to queue up Bill to talk more about is now is a great time to get solar on your roof and put a heat pump in your house because it's not going to be cheaper next year. So that's a great way to stick it to the Republicans, so to speak, is make the actions that you can make right now while those incentives still exist. In addition, the other really bad stuff in this bill has to do with the incentives for bigger scale projects. So these are two types of projects. The first one is deploying wind and solar and geothermal and all these clean technologies in all kinds of communities in this country. These are through what you might have remembered called the production tax credit and the investment tax credit. They're basically just the way we've built wind and solar for decades. And what the Republicans did overnight before they passed it in the House is that they actually made this worse. Not only did they layer on top of these rules, these ridiculous requirements that every single little rivet and widget and part of it had to be made in America, which no object in America is fully, cradle to grave made in America. The clean energy industry is actually doing better than most because there's so much effort to bake stuff in America. But they were layering these ridiculous red tape rules on it to make it really hard to build stuff. And then in the middle of the night, they said, if you haven't started your project within 60 days of this becoming a law, you're out of luck. This would completely pull the rug out from under the clean energy industry because, as you can imagine, if you want to build a clean project, it takes time, especially if you want to build it with community. You want to put something on a community college or a community center, that takes time to do it. And so they're really pulling the rug out from under the industry. And the second tax credit that they're really gutting is to build clean stuff in America. So this is everything from battery manufacturing and solar panel manufacturing all the way through recycling of those technologies. And I'm sure folks have been reading things like the Clean Economy Tracker, which show, for example, that so much is getting made in America right now. We're onshoring hundreds of thousands of jobs. There's tens of millions of dollars and billions, sorry, excuse me, tens of billions of dollars of investment here in made in America stuff. And at a time when the president is saying, oh, we shouldn't be importing things, let's put tariffs on everything in the world. Why would we be screwing over all these new factories in the United States, which are overwhelmingly in Republican districts? So that's the context. That's what's at stake. It's everything from environmental justice investments all the way through good, clean energy jobs made in America. And there's so much that, you can do right now to change that. So with that, hopefully that's some good context for everybody. Thank you for joining us. And our first speaker is none other than the wonderful Bill McKibben, who I'm sure you know. He's an author, he's a founder of Third Act, and he's an all-around climate champion who just does this day in and day out. And we're all so grateful for him. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Bill to give you some more ideas of some of the things that are going on and what you can do to challenge this moment. So Bill, take it away.
Leah, thank you so much. Jamie, thank you so much. What a pleasure to be with everyone. Now, look, I confess to a tiny bit of ambivalence here because I've been trying to persuade my wife that henceforth I should be known as Big Beautiful Bill, but she has balked at this. And truthfully, we should all balk at this stupid piece of legislation. Don't take it from me, take it from the 13 House Republicans who wrote to the Senate today telling them that they'd made a mistake and they should put some of the green energy stuff back in. Um, Everyone's going to tell you about the details of this particular bill and about the things to be doing, and everybody is doing those things. I'm proud to say that at Third Act we're hard at work. I just want to set the context. I want to explain to you why it is that the fossil fuel industry is so insistent here, why they've pulled out all the stops, why they spent a record amount of money electing the Republicans this time around. And it's because they're scared out of their minds. Renewable energy in the last 3 or 4 years has passed some invisible line where power from the sun and wind is cheaper than power from setting coal and oil and gas on fire. That is a remarkable revolutionary moment for human beings. And as a result, around the rest of the world, solar energy is now expanding faster than any energy source in history. It's being built everywhere, especially China, who's about to eat our lunch on all of this, but everywhere around the world. We're now putting up a gigawatts worth of solar panels, which is the equivalent of a nuclear power plant or a coal-fired power plant, every 18 hours on this earth. If we increase that 50% or so, we'll be on pace, more or less, with what we agreed to do in Paris 8 years ago. So the possibilities here are greater than they have ever been before. In China, in the first quarter of this year, the use of coal fell by 5% because they have so many solar panels, so many wind turbines, and so many batteries. That's what terrifies big oil. And it's happening in this country too. We're going to hear from the great Governor Inslee in a moment. I believe that in his state, they're busy building solar panels on the side of the old Hanford nuclear reservation, which is a poetic justice, and on and on and on. We need to make sure that America does not get left behind here. And that starts with killing this bill. This is the most unwise piece of legislation that it's possible the US Senate has ever considered, because if we pass it, we permanently consign the United States to the caboose of the renewable energy train. And that is no place to be for the country that invented the solar cell, the country that taught us about climate science, the country that really should be in the lead here. I'm just going to end by saying we're at the most hopeful moment in the 40 years that I've been working on the climate crisis, because finally we have the solution affordably at hand. To toss that overboard right now would be the greatest of follies. So thanks to everyone who's rising up to say no to this thing. And many, many thanks to you, Leah and Jamie.
Well, I think that was the real one big beautiful bill we just heard from, as he will henceforth be called. That was really funny. Thank you, Bill, for everything you do. And like he said, solar, batteries, wind, it's cheaper now. So it's a great time. If you're thinking about putting solar on your roof and you've been procrastinating, this call is being live streamed with solar energy from my own roof. My power went out on Sunday and my backup battery kept it going. So you can live this lifestyle. It was supported by the federal government through those tax credits, which still exist and will exist till the end of the year, even if they're planning to screw them over for the future. So with that, I want to pass it to the one and only great Governor Jay Inslee. We're very lucky to have him, the 23rd governor of Washington State, and I believe one of the OG climate badasses out there. So thank you so much for taking some time out to, inspire us. I'll pass it to you, Governor Inslee.
Well, I'm telling you, this has been a big discussion so far. We got beautiful Bill and badass Jay. So I really appreciate that introduction. Look, this bill will do more harm to more Americans in more places, in more ways than perhaps any bill that's ever been considered by the United States Senate. And it's called, you've called it a big dirty bill. I think it's a small dirty bill because it's based on being small minded. These people who put this out are so pessimistic, so small in their ambitions, so minuscule in their understanding of how much we're creating clean energy that's very inexpensive right now. It is that small mindedness that is going to risk getting inexpensive electricity for Americans all across the country. And talk about a bait and switch. Donald Trump ran saying, look, I'm going to get inflation down. What is the first thing he does? He tries to blow up the ability and make it illegal, in a sense, for Americans to get cheaper electricity. And cheaper electricity is from solar and wind and advanced batteries and efficiency right now. So here's a guy who ran fighting inflation, and his big major thing he wants to put on his award stand is making it impossible for Americans to get this cheaper electricity and shackle them. put the irons around their ankle to have to be stuck with dirty, expensive coal-fired electricity. That's what this is about, just for his buddies. And this is just another act of corruption that this guy has been involved in since day one in the White House. So it is also small-minded because of the jobs we're losing. Not only are people going to have more expensive energy because of this, or electricity, the job loss is incredible. Climate Power, a very credible organization, just came up with a report that it has already cost or jeopardized 90,000 jobs, and will get to 400,000 in the next couple of years if this bill passed. And these are jobs all over the United States, and these are good paying jobs and not necessarily people with college degrees. Everybody can get involved in the clean energy revolution, and everybody is right now because of the jobs that are being created. But this thing would stop in our tracks this revolution of giving people cheaper electricity and more jobs. What's not to like about that? But we've got a guy who's so corrupt that he wants to favor his fossil fuel buddies, and that's what this battle is about. Now, here's the most important message, if I can leave this with you. I've served in the US Congress for 16 years, on a state legislature for 4 years. I was a governor for 12 years. And here's a little secret that I learned that I want to share with you. You can really make a difference in the next couple of days. I will tell you this: making phone calls to members of the US Congress can have a real impact. I know because I've been there. I've seen members of Congress being influenced by the deluge of messages they're getting on their phones, and it can work. So if you spend a time to make a few phone calls here, talk to your neighbors, ask them to make a few phone calls. I'm telling you, it can make a difference. And there's a pretty doggone argument. We've had 12 or 13 members of the Congress write and say, well, we really didn't mean it. You really shouldn't do such a boneheaded move. But then they went ahead and voted for it. Those people are in trouble back home. They're in trouble because of their hypocrisy if this bill, in fact, goes through. So you got some members of Congress that are a little worried here tonight about this bill, and you will give them just a little dose of courage to do something and avoid a ruinous result in their next election. So call them up, give them a piece of your mind, tell them what you need, and we just may have a better day. We're not going to get a whole win here, but anything we can do to save an ounce of hope is worth doing right here. So thanks, everybody. Let's go get them.
Thank you so much, Governor. I couldn't agree more. There are very few phone calls that these people are getting in Congress. If you call, for example, just brainstorming, I don't know, Senator Tillis from North Carolina, and you maybe mention that, Toyota has a new factory with $8 billion of investment where, 3,000 people in Randolph County will be employed, and they'll be paid about twice, yes, 2 times higher than the median income in that county. I don't know, just an idea. That might make an impression on Senator Tillis, who I believe is up for reelection and, is probably going to be in a tough race and has already signed a letter saying that maybe we shouldn't roll back all these clean energy investments. So, and I do believe we have some folks on this call from North Carolina, places like Asheville, which have been devastated by climate impacts already. So that's the kind of thing we want you all doing. And we're going to be providing some direct examples how to do that. And just like Governor Inslee said, get a few friends to do it too. Activism is always more fun together. So with that, I want to introduce Holly Bender, who is the Chief Program Officer at the Sierra Club, our, preeminent organization of getting people across this country to take action. I'm a proud member of the Sierra Club, and I want to hear, Holly, what's on your mind? What do you think people can be doing?
Hey, Leah. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. I'm Holly Bender. As Leah noted, I'm the Chief Program Officer at the Sierra Club. Sierra Club is the nation's oldest and most influential grassroots organization. And I hope to accomplish a couple of things and sharing with you all tonight. I want to talk about a couple of really key provisions in this bill. As you've heard from a few folks, from Leah, from Governor Inslee, from the big, beautiful Bill McKibben, even Republicans in Congress are feeling the pressure. And our theory of change is that when people realize what is in this bill, and we put pressure on decision makers, it will be impossible to vote for this thing that increases our energy costs, opens up public lands for oil and gas drilling, and really impacts everyday Americans in energy costs as well as in the pollution in our communities. So I want to share a few of the provisions that are going to put our communities at risk by reducing public participation, and also opens our beloved public lands up to impact. So there's two specific provisions that I really want to lift up out of this bill, which is truly a corporate polluter's wish list, masquerading as public policy, masquerading as a budget bill. As you all likely know, this is a budget package, which means that the Republicans are aiming to raise money so that they can pay for something. And what they're paying for are tax credits for tax reductions, tax cuts for the wealthy. And so in order to pay for those tax cuts, they are willing to sell off a few things that we hold dear. One of those is selling off our opportunity to participate as members of the public in processes for permitting big pieces of polluting infrastructure in our community. We call that the polluter pay to pollute provision. So I'll describe that one. And then the other is literally selling off of our public lands so that oil and gas companies can drill, so mining companies can mine and put our air, water, and of course our climate at risk. So the first provision that the Sierra Club is calling pay to pollute is actually a series of rollbacks in this bill that allow polluters literally to pay a fee and either shorten, bypass altogether, or significantly reduce the amount of public participation that goes into approving things like gas export terminals that are impacting the Gulf South, or large gas pipelines, for example, that are cutting through some of those communities in North Carolina and others. This pay to pollute scheme essentially puts a price tag on your public participation, on the participation of our communities to have a say in what types of polluting facilities can impact our air, our water, our land. The language would allow a nominal fee. These fees are tiny in the big scheme of things compared to the costs or the potential profits that these corporations would receive. And it essentially eliminates those kinds of meaningful opportunities for us to engage and to have a say, to stand up and have our voices heard, and that we know are so critical. This is a deeply cowardly move. We know that when the public stands up, we stand up for clean air, we stand up for our opportunity to have clean water. And so this move to eliminate those opportunities is exactly what you would think. It is a scheme that puts profits over people. It puts our safe air and drinking water at risk. It will raise energy costs by locking us into a reliance on fossil fuels. And it puts our bedrock environmental laws at risk. We have to retain the opportunity for communities to stand up and have a say, and also for our government to thoroughly review these types of projects that are projects that could be with us for decades to come and could lock us in to decades more of fossil fuels. So we have to say no and stop this pay to pollute scheme that is in the bill. The second thing I wanted to draw attention to, of course, in addition to all of the ways that we are, this bill would potentially hamstring our clean energy industry that Leah has mentioned, that Governor Inslee mentioned. We're at the same time giving handouts to the oil and gas industries so that they can open up more of our lands, our public lands, to oil and gas drilling. These are public lands like the Arctic Refuge. These are public lands like the Boundary Waters watershed. And with so many people joining from across the country, I loved seeing where people were joining us from tonight. The chances are there are public lands near you that could be impacted by this bill, by the unraveling of and opening up of our public lands for these polluting industries. Places like Alaska, Utah, and other key states are at issue. In addition to the opening up of our public lands to oil and gas drilling, which has a devastating impact on the environment, In one version of the House bill, which may come back in the Senate, there was an actual proposal to sell, not sell the rights to oil and gas leasing, but to sell our public lands to the highest bidder. This is deeply anti-American. It's anti-democratic. And the thing I will also say that you've already heard tonight and you will hear multiple times over is that we were able to get those sell-offs out of the House bill because people lifted up their voices. They picked up their phones, they made the phone calls. I know you keep hearing call, call, call. The reason you're hearing that is that we know that it works and we have an opportunity to stop this bill. As we said before, even the Republicans who didn't read the bill, they didn't read it after they passed it. They started to lift up their voices because they heard from people from around the country who were deeply disappointed, angry and frustrated, and calling for change. So I will drop into the chat an opportunity to engage with the Sierra Club. You don't have to be a Sierra Club member. I'll share the link in the chat for how to lift up your voice and take action. And I'm sure there will be multiple other ways to do that that we'll share tonight. Back to you, Leah.
Thank you so much, Holly, for highlighting those provisions that are just so disturbing and wrong, and for reminding people that you got to pick up the phone and call. Some of us younger people, I'm not that young, I'm starting to get the gray hair, guys, but some of us younger people don't like calling as much, especially the really younger people, the actual young people on the call. But guys, the phone, this is an amazing organizing tool right here because so few people do it. So if you actually do the calls, I remember Jamie and I and some other folks did a bunch of calls around the Build Back Better legislation. And I'm telling you, I actually was doing a research study at the same time. We could see on the other side how many people were calling. There are so few people calling. So your voices get hugely amplified if you actually use your phone. And with that, I want to pass it over to Jasmine Gill, who is the Associate Senior Director from the Hip Hop Caucus, to talk more to us about environmental justice and what are the stakes in this bill. So Jasmine, over to you.
Thank you so much, Leah, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and tuning into this conversation. So many speakers said it better than I could have about what is in this bill, but really, politicians are really claiming at this point that this is about energy independence and economic growth. And the truth is the bill is really just about the massive giveaway to the fossil fuel industry, especially those right in states like Louisiana, Texas, or the Ohio River Valley region. And it's Black and brown communities who will pay the highest price for what is in this bill. Fossil fuel subsidies really are about billions for the polluters. This bill hands billions more in tax breaks and subsidies to oil and gas and petrochemical companies on top of the $20 billion a year that they're already getting from taxpayers. So what does this mean for communities? It really means that these subsidies don't create jobs. In fact, studies show link between biggest taxes and better economic outcomes for our parishes and counties, what happens after the fact. Instead, that money could be going towards schools, hospitals, building up our infrastructure, and really diverting from fossil fuel industry to create more green economy. And this leaves our communities with even fewer resources and even more pollution. What is coming our way in this bill is really about environmental justice, point blank, period. Black and brown is cost if we do not step up. In Louisiana's Cancer Alley already along the Gulf Coast and in these regions, majority Black and brown communities are already dealing with higher risk of cancer, asthma, and health problems from petrochemical industries, oil and gas industries, LNG industries. Allow me to make it plain for you all tonight. This bill and who it benefits isn't helping working families. It's about padding the pockets of fossil fuel CEOs and stripping away protections of our communities and what we need to stay healthy and safe. We'll continue to breathe in dirtier air if this happens. We'll continue to drink more polluted water, and we'll have even less power to fight back when it happens. We know what we deserve, and now is the time to show up for it. Nationally, during moments like this around this bill. So really, when I'm asked, what can you do in this moment? Show up, make the call, send the emails, work with organizations on the ground, amplify your stories, attend the rallies, and most importantly, vote year round, because it's the decision makers that are holding these things up, but also it's our duty to vote for the people who are voting that prioritize our community, prioritize our health, and prioritize working families. And they have the vote and ready to our line communities. No one is coming to save us in this moment. And the good news that I have for you tonight is that we already have everything we need to save our lives. We have to do it all because what we're trying to protect is worth that. So I'll wrap up with something that our president and founder, Reverend Yearwood at the Hip Hop Caucus, which is organized people, powerful. Thank you so much for being in the community with us tonight, and I ask that you continue to show up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jasmine, for bringing that message. And thank you all. I mean, all of our speakers, I think, have emphasized the key pieces of the moment we found ourselves in, that there are huge, huge stakes for this bill. But actually, this is a really unique moment where we can make a big impact. And Lee and I wouldn't lie to you about that. I mean, we'll be honest. There are times where we sign petitions and we send it in and we sort of know nobody's listening or it's not going to make a big moment. This is not one of those moments. As Governor Inslee said, as others have said, they are counting calls in Congress right now in offices to see what the opposition is like. We've already stripped out some of the worst provisions of this bill. Members are feeling the heat. Members are beginning to back it up. It's slowing down. You have folks like, who knows, Elon Musk suddenly saying that he doesn't like this thing. So I think the tide is beginning to shift in our direction. So this is a key moment to plug in. But what we also wanted to take a moment to talk about tonight is as we fight this bill, we also want to play offense. We also wanted to think about the ways that we can keep strengthening this movement, expanding it, bringing new people in, and revitalizing the sense that we can fight back. And one of the, I think, the most inspiring ways we can do that is not just with the technical policy pieces or petitions, but also a little bit of art and music. That's a key part of social movements. It's a key part of this movement. And it's one of the ways that we're trying to think about how we can really advance the clean energy economy. Bill McKibben mentioned it earlier. We put it in the chat. A lot of us are working together to build towards a big day of action this September called Sunday, where people across the country will demonstrate the power of clean energy, celebrate the progress that we've made, defend the programs that we need to defend, and continue to push to make sure that we can build out a clean energy economy no matter what happens. And so if you go to sunday.earth, that's one of the actions we have. You can sign up and you can also take part in a great art project where people are drawing suns around the country to show their support for solar power. So after you make your phone call and sign your petition, you can get out your colored pencils as well and take part in a little art with us. But to inspire you to do that and to inspire us to keep fighting tonight, we have an incredible friend, ally here. She is a Grammy-nominated singer. She's an actress. She's the CEO of Climate Revival, a longtime environmental justice leader, and she's the official ambassador for this Sunday project that's moving forward. Her name is Antonique Smith. Antonique, I want to hand it over to you to talk a little bit about the work you do with Climate Revival, and then I think that you may even have a little bit of music for us tonight as well.
Thank you for having me, Jamie, and shout out to our big, beautiful Bill McKibben. So wonderful to be here. I'm so excited. I'm feeling so hopeful. Climate Revival is my nonprofit that I co-founded with the great Rev Yearwood. And we're mobilizing people of faith and people of color to fight against climate change and fight for environmental justice. Jasmine talked about it a little bit, but people in communities of color and poor communities in our country are dying from the pollution that's causing climate change. I'm in New Jersey right now. We have this horrible power plant on the turnpike, and my little sister, who's special needs, also has a lung disease because not only do we live too close to that power plant, but her program that she goes to with other special needs individuals is right, like she's sandwiched between a whole nother power plant. So, we have a lot to fight against, and this horrible, ugly, terrible, crazy, ridiculous bill that they're trying to pass is actually going to take a lot more lives. People are going to die, and it just doesn't need to happen because we have incredible solutions that will also continue to help the people who need to continue to make their billions. We're not saying that you can't have billions, but you don't have to kill people to make your money. That's how I feel about it. So in the spirit of hope, in the spirit of solutions, in the spirit of Sunday coming up September 21st, I am going to sing Here Comes the Sun. Here comes the sun, little darling. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. But here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. And I say it's alright. Little darling, the smiles returning to the faces. Little darling, seems like years since it's been here. But here comes the sun, little darling. Here comes the sun. And I say it's alright. Ooh. Sun, 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 here it comes. 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 Oh. Little darling, I feel the ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. But here comes the sun, little darling. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes. And it's all right. Sunday, September 21st. Thank you.
Woohoo! Well, let me be the first person to say that was fabulous, Jamie.
Thank you
You wanna
so much.
second
Thank
that?
you so much, Antonique. You know, I've gotten to hear Antonique do this before, and every time it gives me goosebumps. Antonique bringing that music and soul and art to this movement, I think is so key, and a little bit of inspiration because as dark as these times are, we know that hope is out there. And being in community with all of you on this call, and Antonique with you singing that song, it just brings me, it fills me up. I play the song for my daughter every night, and I think we might have to switch versions because I don't know.
George Harrison out, Antonique in.
Antonique in.
Good.
Thank
I'm
you.
sold. So everyone, you know, we're going to keep talking about fighting this bill. We're going to transition back over to Leah to introduce our next incredible speaker. But if you're interested in plugging in, as Leah said, now more than ever is the time to get those solar panels, figure out a heat pump. There are great resources online. And if you go to sunday.earth, we're going to be putting more of those up because as we fight the bad, we've got to build the good. as well. But Leah, we have someone pretty exciting coming up. I'll say that as a Boston kid too. I'm very excited about our next
Oh, I
speaker.
see you're pandering to the locals. So yeah, we have a kind of a competition here. Who was the OG Congress climate activist? Was it the great Governor Inslee used to be in the House? Was it the great Senator Markey used to be in the House? Maybe it's just both of them. I love Senator Markey. He always brings the energy to the movement and reminds us that even in the darkest times, there is still sunshine. There is still lots to hope for. So thank you so much for joining us, Senator Markey. It's wonderful to see you, and I'll let you take it away.
Wow. Thank you, Professor, so much. Thank you for hosting tonight, and to Jamie, and to everyone who has joined tonight. And Antonique, here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. And you know what? Last year in the United States, in 2024, 94% of all new installed electrical generation capacity was wind and solar and batteries, and 6% natural gas. 94%. Let me say it again. 94% solar and wind and batteries installed last year of all installations, and only 6% of natural gas. So here comes the sun. Here it comes, and that's what's scaring the oil and gas industry. That's what's scaring these fossil fuel billionaires, because they can see the sun is coming. It's already here. And if it happens year after year after year after year, after what happened in 2024, we're going to be looking at the fossil fuel era in a rearview mirror of history. And they're crying their crocodile tears right now. They're saying, oh my goodness, look at all the subsidies wind and solar are getting, and battery storage technologies, and all electric vehicles. But oil, gas, and coal have been getting subsidies for 100 years. And all we're saying is, give us some of that socialism. And then here comes the sun. And we're already at the dawn of the new era, and they want to shut it down. So this is the most destructive climate rollback ever proposed by Congress. It doesn't just take a red pen to climate investments, it takes a blowtorch, and it's a direct attack on our health, on our wallets, on our communities, and our future. The planet is running a fever. There are no emergency rooms for planets. We have to engage in preventative care, and that's what's happening. That's what's unfolding. That's what's driving the oil, gas, and coal industry absolutely crazy. And then, unbelievably, they want to take that $500 billion and give it over to billionaires and millionaires in tax breaks. It's just absolutely irresponsible. So you are right. Jay Inslee and I, we work side by side, year after year, in order to fight this fossil fuel oligarchy. And by standing up right now, we can protect against what this big, ugly bill is going to try to do. Cut $500 billion from the clean energy tax credits that are powering our manufacturing comeback, lowering household energy bills, and cutting funding for air pollution reduction nationwide, including at schools. And the Republicans are also proposing to repeal tailpipe emissions standards, which protect air quality, public health, drivers' wallets, American jobs. And without these safeguards, we're just going to see more carbon going up into the atmosphere, more particulate matter, nitrogen oxide, and we're going to see more cancers, more lung disease. That's what they're advocating for. And we're going to be saying, no, we can avoid that, and we can simultaneously save $46 billion. $46 billion for consumers. And these fossil fuel, absolute, monomaniacal monopolists, they want to give polluters a Willy Wonka golden ticket to skip environmental reviews. It's a big oil wish list disguised as a budget bill. And who's going to pay the price? We're going to pay the price. So We have another vision, though. We're going to make sure that we get those 830,000 additional jobs by 2030. We're going to make sure that there isn't an increase of $120 a year in electricity bills. We're going to make sure that we don't lose the $1.1 trillion in economic development over the next 10 years. We're going to do all of it. And we're going to make sure that we do it in a fiscally responsible way. We're actually going to ultimately save money for the American taxpayer. And I just want to follow up because Jay Inslee and I, we've been in office a long, long time. And here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing 80% of all the funding from the IRA went to red states. 80% of the jobs created in red states. So we've got an incredible argument that we can make, and we're going to make it. And ultimately, Congress is a stimulus response institution, and there's nothing more stimulating than tens of thousands of calls going into the Congress from people in their home states just saying, we do not want you to be backing the polluters. We do not want you to be slashing climate investments. We don't want you to be leading the charge for fewer jobs. So this is the moment. And in addition, they're also going to try their best to cut the funding for environmental justice. That funding that was built in for Black and Brown and Indigenous and low-income frontline communities. We built that in by the tens of billions. They want to cut that funding as well. So we just can't allow them to do it. What we need is a real Green New Deal. We need to make sure we've transformed the entire landscape. So call and write to your senators, show up, be loud, because our movement is bigger than the lobbyists. And this moment is bigger than their greed. Thank you all for what you are going to be doing. We can't agonize, we have to organize. Organize now, and we can win this. So let's just stop this bill together. We can do it. Thank you all so much for your great leadership. Here comes the sun.
Here, here. Thank you so much, Senator Markey. And Senator Markey set us up so well, right? We have the facts on our side. We have real world examples of the investments that are being made. We have some great metaphors and talking points I think you've heard on this call. What we need to do is back that up with a huge outpouring of action right now. And so I want to pass it over to two of my colleagues here at Fossil Free Media and the Make Polluters Pay campaign, Tejal and Cass, who are going to talk through some of the different ways that we've pulled together for you to take action, and ways that a lot of our partners have been putting together as well, because we really wanted to gather people across the movement here to make sure that we're all playing our role and applying pressure in every last way we can think of. So Tejal and Cass, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Jamie. Hi, everyone. I'm Tejal, Digital Director at Fossil Free Media based in Washington State. So today's call is all about action, how we can really fight this dirty budget bill together. We know what's at stake, so we're going to take a few moments right now to take action while we're on this call together and feeling motivated by all of our amazing speakers. We have a petition tool to contact your representatives to tell them to reject the dirty budget bill that my colleagues will drop in the chat. And if you haven't signed that already, please do so while we're on this call together. And once you've signed the petition and texted it to at least 5 of your friends, please use our 5 calls link, which is also in the chat. You just have to enter your zip code and call your representatives. And since it's after hours, we will use the script on the 5 calls page to leave voicemails. So I'm gonna go on mute and we're all gonna take out our cell phones and take a minute to do that together right now. Okay, so for those of you who are still making calls, keep it up. Thank you for taking action. In the interest of times, I just want to let you all know all of our links can be found at our call page at our Take Action website, makepoliterspay.net/act. Please encourage all of your friends and families to make calls this week. As Governor Inslee pointed out, and all of our speakers pointed out, we know that this truly does make a difference and we can get the attention of our representatives. So I'll now be passing the mic over to my colleague Cass, who has one more exciting action item to share.
Thanks, Thajal. Hey everyone, my name is Cass DiPaola. I'm the Communications Director at Fossil Free Media. I'm from the Adirondack Mountains in Plattsburgh, New York. So I just signed the petition and sent an email to my representative, Elise Stefanik. So fingers crossed she listens to me. But thanks for joining this call and being here. This call is all about fighting back against a bill that guts clean energy and gives handouts to big oil. And so I want to zoom in on one powerful way that we can fight back together, which is Sunday. Jamie, Bill, and Antonique mentioned this incredible event earlier, but it's really worth reiterating. On September 21st, 2025, so this coming fall, people across the country will take part in the first ever National Day of Action focused entirely on accelerating the clean energy transition. So from rooftop solar tours to rallies for permitting reform, Sunday is a coordinated push to demand the future that we already have the tools to build, and to call out the political obstruction that is keeping it from reaching our communities. So if you haven't yet, please head to sunday.earth/events and sign up for an action near you, or start one yourself. This is how we make clean energy visible, tangible, and unstoppable. So I know that Duncan is dropping the link in the chat. It's been in the chat throughout the evening, but please take a minute right now to open the link, browse what's happening near you, drop your name in to get involved, and please take this time, if you're on the call already, to take this action. Sunday is how we shift the narrative from delay to delivery, and from fossil fuel politics to people-powered progress, PPP. And it only works if we all get involved. So this is our moment to show up. We're here. We need to demand action. So please go to sunday.earth and get involved. With that, I will pass it to Aru Shiny Ajay from the Sunrise Movement, who's going to continue to talk about how we can keep up the pressure starting tonight. Aru, take it away.
Hi, y'all. Thanks, Cass, for passing it to me. Let's see. How many people have already done all 5 things listed out in this little chat? Sign the petition, send a letter, calling your reps. I'm gonna ask you to keep working right through that list while I talk, so that by the end, we have 384 people on this call. I hope we have 384 phone bank signups by the time we end this. Amazing. And maybe if you have access to the chat, put something in the chat when you've signed up for all 5. So I want to talk about another action that we can take, specifically about sending a letter to our reps. And I know that it's really easy. I feel this a lot. I'm like, what really happens when we send a letter to our reps? Do they pay any attention? And I want to share a little bit about why I believe so much in the ability of political pressure to work. I joined the Sunrise Movement when I was 18 years old. It was back in 2017, and climate action seemed totally impossible. I think climate was like number 17 on the list of issues that people cared about. Everyone was like, it's always about climate versus jobs. The Democratic Party really clearly was sending signals that climate was not a top issue that they cared about. And young people, Sunrise and many, many others, decided that they weren't going to take that lying down. So we protested. We walked out of school. We marched. I had friends who trekked across California, trekked across the Gulf South, went on hunger strike, calling over and over and over again to pass historic climate legislation that could actually give us a shot at a livable future. And we won that. We won something that actually supercharged the green energy economy because we refused to take no for an answer, because we created political pressure that actually just changed the reality, the political reality that we were living under. So I really believe in pressure and I really believe in protest. And I think a lot of the time the narratives we hear is that, oh, this was Joe Manchin's climate bill. Oh, this was like something that was just bound to happen. This was our climate bill. If you were out at a climate protest in 2019, you helped win the original bill that helped supercharge the green energy economy. You helped win something that they are now trying to claw back. So that's why I believe in this stuff. And we at Sunrise, we've developed a little digital tool that helps you actually send a letter specifically talking about the impacts of this so-called big beautiful bill on our climate and on your specific state. So I sent a letter to my Democratic senators in Minnesota talking about the jobs that are going to be cut in Minnesota if this bill actually gets passed. And one of the things I've always loved about the Inflation Reduction Act is that it really makes sure that when we passed it, we were building new political constituencies for climate, that we were bringing in more and more people to be invested in the clean energy economy. And so therefore, they would have a stake in not letting it get clawed back. We passed that a few years ago, and now it's time to take advantage of that strategy and make sure to actually protect our wins. I think about all the sacrifices that people made to get this bill passed in the first place. I think about the sleepless nights, the students who walked for ages and ages, this people I know who dropped out of college, dropped out of high school to organize, the people who went on hunger strike. I don't want those sacrifices that ended up in enormous victories to be for nothing. That is why I think this moment is important. We have a historic opportunity to protect our wins and to actually create pressure in this moment and to protect everything that we have fought so hard for. So let's see. I know the chat maybe isn't active, but go ahead and keep working through that list. Send that letter, sign the petition, call your reps, join the phone banks, and join Sunday on September 21st. We really need every ounce of pressure. This could make the critical difference. We've passed the original investment into our clean energy economy so that we are able to build on our wins now and protect everything we've won. Back to you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much,
much,
Aru.
Aru.
We were both thanking you at the same time.
Yes, we're both thank you.
Thank
Leah are
you.
there. We're both inspired. Um, The only thing I'd add, those are all incredible actions. If you go to that page too, you'll find that makepolicerpay.act, .net/act. You'll find a bunch of actions up there that you can also hook up with some of our partners. So I know that the team at both Move On and Indivisible have phone banks running, I believe, on Tuesday and Wednesdays around noon, where you can call people in other key states. So you can call Move On or Indivisible members and say, I don't know, Leah, North Carolina or Maine or Utah or a few of these other places where a phone call might make even more of a difference to someone who's on the fence. And so that is a really critical way to take action because often people getting a phone call from you saying, hey, I live here in New Hampshire and my senators and reps are on board, but I really need you to put some pressure on yours. That can make a big difference and inspire people to take action. So that's another key way to take part. Also, shout out No King's Day coming up this weekend on the 14th. There's thousands of actions planned across the country to push back. Climate's a key part of that. We know that this isn't just an oligarchy, it's an oligarchy. These issues are intertwined, and so we really want to turn out as climate activists, part of the broader progressive movement, and fight back, be in solidarity with everybody from those who are resisting the horrific overreach that's happening in LA right now, our allies fighting for immigrant justice, to everybody fighting for to maintain Medicaid, to maintain Medicare, healthcare across the board. So I think it's important for the climate movement to show up for our core issues, but also really be in solidarity with everybody else. Leah, I'm feeling inspired towards the end. How
I'm
you
feeling
feeling?
very inspired. You know, the fact is the Trump administration is literally keeping open coal plants right now that no one wants open anymore that are going to cost people, you know, millions of dollars in their electricity bills. That's what we're dealing with right now. So, you know, we have the facts on our side. We have cheap, clean energy on our team. And like I mentioned, the other thing you can do if you have the money to do it, which I totally get that not everyone does, but if you have the money to get a used EV or a new EV this year, this is the year to do it, because I think those incentives are going away. If you have the resources to put solar on your roof or a battery in your garage, or you know somebody else, your parents, your grandparents, your neighbors, this is the time to do it. And my favorite thing, if you got the time to put a heat pump water heater in your house, they're not that expensive. That's the cheapest thing on the list. If this was like the shopping network or something like that, this is the cheapest one. The heat pump water heater, it's a great thing. I got one in my own house, and they're $2,000 off going now until the end of the year when they claw back those tax credits. And although I think, as Aru was saying, we can make progress and we can save a lot of things, unfortunately, the Republicans definitely want to take away these incentives that help everyday people, quit fossil fuels. So a really great way to stick it to them is to say, well, guess what? I will be using those incentives while they still exist. So tell your friends about the discount going for solar and heat pumps and EVs going now, going until the end of 2025 on sale. Now's the time to do it. And just thanks for everybody for everything you're doing. It's a hard time right now, seeing what's happening in LA, not too far from where I live. It's very disturbing. And like Jamie said, now is such an important time to be in solidarity with folks on the front lines of rural hospitals closing, which is the other part of this bill that we haven't spent time talking about. Now is really a key time to really step up and say, no, this is not okay. This is not American. We actually want to protect everyday people in this country. So with that, Jamie, any closing remarks?
I think we're good. I mean, people joined a call. We had music. We had Home Shopping Network. We had ways to take
Yeah, I
action.
sold some heat pumps. I didn't get any kickbacks though. This is unfortunate. If
That's
this is
next,
some
Leah.
kind
That's
of
next.
corrupt government, I'm not getting any kickbacks as part of it. It's not cool.
Thank you all so much for joining. We really appreciate coming out on a Monday night like this. As Tejal and Cass said, we're going to be sharing links to this call. It was recorded. We've been live streaming across a bunch of other channels. We know that hundreds of people joined Zoom, thousands more RSVP'd and are watching at home. So just thank you for turning out. Again, we've said it, we'll say it one more time. This is a moment where these calls, these actions really, really count. So a huge thank you to all of our speakers who turned out. But really, thanks to all of you. We know that it can be hard out there. It can be exhausting. It can be overwhelming following the news. It's really inspiring for me to get to be in community with all of you, to hear music like Antonique's tonight, and to fight back. So I have a chance that we may not stop everything in this bill, but we can strip out a lot of the worst provisions, and we can bounce back even stronger to keep up fighting. So thank you. Leah, closing words?
Here comes the sun. I think
Here
that's the
comes the
message
sun.
of
We'll
the
end on
night.
that. Thank you all
Bye,
so much. Have a
friends.
great
Nice to
night.
see
Let's
you
keep up the
all.
fight.
Go get them.